Two brothers lived under the same roof. One was a wealthy businessman, the other a humble laborer. Every day, the businessman mocked and scolded his brother. But what happens when the tables suddenly turn? Who becomes the fool, and who holds the power? A shocking tale of pride, regret, and unexpected redemption. Watch closely, because the truth will surprise you. Rain tapped against the wooden windows of the old house. Inside, the air was tense. Salo stood tall in a sharp gray suit, his shoes polished, his tie stiff. Across the room, Farid crouched near the fireplace, dirt on his hands, sweat on his brow. "You will never be more than a mule," Salo said, his voice cold and firm. Farid looked down, his lips pressed tight. He said nothing, only the fire cracked, throwing long shadows on the cracked walls. Salo walked away, his steps echoing against the wooden floor. Farid remained still, the weight of silence pressing on his chest. That night, he packed his old bag. A single pair of clothes. A notebook, and his mother's old coin. He walked into the night, the street lamp flickering above him. Mist curled around his feet like whispers. Every step was a vow. Years passed. Farid worked in factories, farms, and ports. He carried sacks heavier than his own body. He saved every coin. He studied at night under streetlights, his fingers numb with cold. He built. He bought. He rose. Now, Farid stood in a marble hallway, glass walls stretching into the sky. Gold trimmed the elevator doors. The city below pulsed with light and noise. He wore a suit finer than Salo's ever was. Reporters chased him, bankers followed his word, and Salo, he stood on the cracked steps of their childhood home. His suit faded, his eyes hollow, his business lost in a spiral of bad debts and worse decisions. He held a letter in shaking hands. Farid International welcomes new entrepreneurs to apply. The logo shimmered, Farid's name, etched in gold. The next morning, Salo walked into the glass tower. Security scanned his ID, then stopped him. "Wait here," they said. He waited. Minutes passed. Then the doors opened. Farid entered. Salo rose quickly. His knees almost buckled. The air inside was cold, sharp with the scent of steel and money. Farid's eyes met his. Salo opened his mouth, but no words came. His tongue felt dry. His throat tightened. Farid walked closer. Each step echoed like a hammer strike. Then he stopped. Silence hung heavy between them. Salo's lips trembled. "I made mistakes," he said. His voice barely a whisper. The room felt smaller, walls closer, the light harsher. Farid's gaze did not soften. He waited. Salo looked away. "I was wrong." Farid breathed in, deep and slow. The air tasted like ash. His heart pounded. He remembered the scorn, the hunger, the lonely nights with no roof, no warmth. And now, here was his brother. Bent by failure, crushed by pride. Farid leaned in. His voice, quiet but firm. "You burned the bridge." Salo blinked. A single tear rolled down his cheek. The world tilted. He felt the weight of every cruel word he had ever said. The tower seemed to rise higher above him. Colder, unforgiving. Farid turned to walk away. Salo reached out, his fingers trembling. He touched nothing. Farid was already steps ahead. The sound of his footsteps was like distant thunder in Salo's ears. "Salo." Farid stopped. He did not turn. "I never wanted revenge," he said. "I wanted peace." Silence filled the room again, heavy and cold. Salo's knees gave way. He sank to the marble floor. The smooth stone was freezing beneath his palms. His breath came in shallow gasps. He looked up at the tall glass windows. The sky outside was gray, thick with clouds. "I lost everything," he whispered. "No," Farid said without turning. "You threw it away." Those words struck like a blade. Salo's mind raced back. The nights he mocked Farid. The mornings he slammed the door without goodbye. The meals Farid skipped so Salo could eat. And now, the world had flipped. Salo was no longer the one holding power. He was the one waiting for mercy. Farid reached the door. His hand touched the handle. He paused. "I worked through blood," he said. "Through cold, hunger, silence. I buried my pain in bricks and steel. And I built this with my bare hands." Salo pressed his forehead to the floor. Tears pooled on the marble. "I am sorry," he said, louder now. The walls carried his voice back to him. Farid turned. His face was unreadable. Behind him, the door stood open. Wind from the hallway brushed in, cool and dry. Salo looked up. Their eyes locked again. Time stopped. The tower seemed to breathe. Farid stepped forward, slow and steady. Each movement deliberate. He stood over Salo once more. But now, it was not weakness he saw. It was the weight of regret. He knelt, their faces inches apart, and then, Farid placed a hand on Salo's shoulder. His grip was firm, but not unkind. Salo flinched. He had expected anger, he had expected rejection, but Farid's eyes held something else. Not warmth, not yet, but not hate, either. Just truth, raw and unfiltered. You were my brother, Farid said softly. I never stopped hoping you would act like one. Salo's lips quivered. I see that now, he said. I see everything now. Outside, thunder rolled. Farid stood up slowly, his hand slipping away from Salo's shoulder. He looked toward the window. Dark clouds twisted above the city, heavy with rain. Lightning flashed, cutting the sky in half. The storm was coming, but inside, for the first time in years, it was still. Farid walked to the desk near the far wall. He picked up a document. The paper was thick, embossed with his company's seal. He stared at it, then turned. He walked back to Salo. Held it out. A contract. Simple, unassuming. A single line on the bottom waited for a signature. Salo looked at it, confused. This is not charity, Farid said. It is a chance. Earn it. Salo reached for the pen, his hands still shaking. He paused, looked up. Why? He asked. After everything I did, why give me anything? Farid's face hardened, his voice dropped. Because I remember what it felt like, when no one believed in me. The thunder cracked again. Farid turned and walked away. Salo stared at the paper. His name, his future, his redemption, but his hands would have to build it from the ground. Just like Farid once did. Salo pressed the pen to the paper. But his hand froze. The ink did not move. His heart pounded in his ears. He looked down at the empty line. His name was so easy to write. But the weight behind it, harder to carry. He thought of the nights he had laughed at Farid's worn boots. The times he slammed the door as Farid swept the floor. The dinners he ate without asking where the food came from. Shame burned his skin like fire. He let the pen fall. It clattered on the desk, sharp and final. Farid heard it but did not stop walking. The elevator door opened ahead of him. Salo stood up. He moved slowly, like his body had aged 10 years. I will earn it, he called out. Farid stepped into the elevator. Turned around. Their eyes met once more. I know, Farid said. The doors slid shut, and Salo was alone. The office felt too big now. Too bright, too clean. He sat back down, picked up the pen again. This time, his signature flowed without hesitation. The ink dried. Fast. Outside, rain struck the windows like 1,000 tiny hammers. Salo leaned back in the chair. The storm had arrived, but inside, for the first time in a long time, something had broken open. Not just silence, not just pride, but the heavy, locked gate around his heart. He stood, walked to the window. Below, people moved like ants between glowing cars and flashing lights. He was no longer above them. No longer blind, just a man, one who had fallen, and one who now had a chance to rise. Salo stood at the window for a long time. The city below shimmered beneath the rain, every light a reminder of life moving forward. Behind him, the contract lay signed. Not as a gift, but as a promise. He took a deep breath. The kind that fills the lungs with more than air, something heavier, something real. Regret, hope, determination. He turned away from the glass, walking slowly through the office that was no longer a stranger's domain, but not yet his own. He paused at the door, ran his fingers along the polished wood, then stepped into the hallway. The air outside was brisk, crisp, alive. Farid was gone, but his words remained, carved deeper than the marble floors and the steel beams. Salo knew the road ahead would be long. He would face doubt, whispers, mistakes that clung like shadows. But he would face them. Not as the man who once mocked his brother, but as the man who had finally understood him. As he exited the building, the storm began to ease. The rain softened, the sky opened just enough to let one quiet beam of sunlight fall across the steps. Salo paused there, letting the light touch his face. And with it came something unexpected. A small, tired smile. Not of triumph, but of beginning, because redemption, like success, is not claimed in one moment. It is earned, one step at a time. And Salo, finally, was ready to walk.